I'm Lindsay, the Frugal Crafter. Welcome to Stamp School. This is a summer-long series where we're going to be looking at beginner rubber stamping techniques. So whether you're a brand new stamper starting to start out in the hobby and you don't want to spend a ton of money, or if you're a seasoned stamper just looking to get back to basics, I think you're going to find a lot of really good information in this series. We're going to start off today with a basic overview of supplies. Now this series is sponsored in part by Art Neco rubber stamps. You can find them online at www.artneco.com, and they have a special coupon for all you guys. You can save 10% off of your entire order or get free shipping on orders over 50. Whichever coupon is greater is what you can use. So that's pretty great, huh? Details will be in the video description, and artneco.com has been a long-time supporter of the Frugal Crafter. They're formerly known as About Art Accents, so it's the same peeps I've been talking about all these years. So I thank them for their generous support. So first we're going to go over some basic supplies. The first thing you need for rubber stamping, of course, are rubber stamps. And I feel like I feel very unnatural today. I don't know why. It's so weird. Do you guys think that? Leave a comment below. Let me know. Thumbs up if Lindsay's a lunatic. I'm going to get like 1,000 thumbs up on this video. First thing you need is rubber stamps. So stamps come different ways. If you're walking through your craft store, you may see stamps that are on wooden blocks like this. And this was the most common rubber stamps that you would find for quite a long time. Stamps also come clear and unmounted. So the clear stamps have been around for probably about 10 years or so. Here's an example. They'll generally come on a clear sheet. You peel them off and you put them on an acrylic block. And I'll talk about those in a second. Unmounted stamps you can purchase just as plain rubber like this, except they'll just come as like on a sheet of rubber. They won't be sticky or anything. And then you can add adhesive to the back to stick it onto your block, or you can add cling cushion, which is really good because it gives you a nice squishy surface to stamp on. But you know, it does take up more room for it to store, and it does add to the cost a little bit, but it's still a lot cheaper than wood mounted stamps, and you can store a lot more in a smaller amount of space. All these binders on my work shelf, I get asked about these all the time. Those are all rubber stamps, unmounted rubber stamps and clear rubber stamps in binders. That's how I like to store them. I also have a lot of sets from Stampin' Up! That came in these CD cases, and I just keep them in that because they don't take up a lot of space that way either. You can buy empty CD cases or even empty VHS cases without the hubs on them, and I think artneco.com has the VHS cases if you want to store your wood-mounted stamps that way, or if you want to store a lot of stamps in a small amount of space. So binders, DVD and VHS cases, they all work well. It's completely up to you how you want to store them, whatever works for your particular storage needs. So these are the different types of stamps you're pretty much going to find. Rubber will generally give you a better impression for really detailed images, but the clear stamps have the advantage of being able to see where you're going to stamp. Like if I'm stamping, and I'm going to be showing you examples of each, but you could see through that stamp, so when you're putting it on your paper, you could see exactly where it's going to be, so you don't need any stamp positioners or anything like that. And that's something else we'll talk about in a future episode. We're just going over the basic supplies today. And so this is, one of my storage binders. You can use divided page protectors. You can use laminated sheets of cardstock. You can use full sheet page protectors, whatever works for you on your budget. I'm not very fancy when it comes to my storage. I just want to be able to find my stuff when I want to use it. Now the different styles of stamps, you're going to see some that are line art, like this sock monkey here. That's great if you like to color images. And then you're going to see stamps that are more solid, like that. And images like that, you would ink up the rubber, stamp it, and then you're done. Because all of the design, all the area that you may color, if it was a line artwork, that's all plain rubber. So you can get fancy with how you ink it, but once you've stamped it, you're done with that image. So it just depends on whether you're a quick stamper or you like to spend more time coloring. So you'll I think once you try a few stamps, you will figure out what camp you're in. I actually like both, so it just depends on the mood that I'm in. And there's even super duper detailed stamps like these house mouse ones that you could spend an hour coloring, and it's very enjoyable if you like that sort of thing. I want to talk about the different types of color mediums that you might want to get as a beginner stamper. I definitely recommend that you get a full-size black ink pad or brown or both if you can swing it. These Ranger Archival inks are really great because they're water-based, but you stamp with them and once it dries, they're waterproof, but they're not solvent. so they're not stinky, they don't have any odor. So I would recommend getting one or both of these and the re-inkers that go with them. And re-inkers are really a very economical thing. They come in these little 1 ounce bottles. I store mine in bags by type. And these are my alcohol inks. These aren't for stamp pads, but I'll just give you an example. They come in like a 1/2 ounce to 1 ounce size bottle. They're usually a couple bucks, but there's usually like 4 ink pads worth of ink in one of those bottles. So you can see how that's more affordable to buy a re-inker and re-ink the pads that you use a lot rather than going out and buying a new pad when it goes dry. So definitely, whichever you choose here, get a re-inker to go with it. So that way you won't have to, you know, run out to the store or order it or what have you when you go dry. And generally you do have to order those online. Most craft stores will not have the re-inkers, but if you are lucky enough to have a local stamp store, they probably will carry the re-inkers for the most popular inks. And if you go to a stamp convention, you'll definitely be able to find the re-inkers, so you can get them both right there. And a full-size ink pad is generally between $4 and $6. You can get them on sale and stuff too, so keep your eyes open once you know what you want to get. Now for colored inks, I'm going to say you could actually get by with a black or brown stamp pad and then choose one of these 3 mediums. So the first one I'm going to talk about is colored inks. And honestly, I recommend going with the little ones if you're starting out. And here's why. You can get more colors for your money. When they start to go dry, you can start investing in the re-inkers, so it's not a huge upfront expense. And these ink pads have a raised surface, okay? So you see how the plastic part is about, I would say 3/16 lower than the pad. I can go and I can ink up even a big stamp like this. I can tap all over it because the ink pad is raised. So if you have like those office style ink pads around where there's like a plastic frame around it and you can only use stamps smaller than that, that's not going to work very well. But if you get one of these small ones that have a raised pad like most stamping ink pads will have, you can really ink any size stamp with it. And you can also even like color a stamp, use a couple different colors on a stamp and kind of get in there and color with it. So a lot of bang for your buck there. That's what I would recommend. And I know a lot of stampers that have been stamping for a long time that have actually gone to these smaller ink pads because they can save so much space. Now I do have many full-size ink pads. These ink pads right here live in my scrapbooking bag actually. I will be using these for the Stamp School episodes, but I like this because I can carry a full set of colors in my traveling bag. And if you're a beginner, you can probably fit all your supplies in a bag or a tote or a piece of luggage or something like that, so you have everything ready to go when you're ready to create, which is really nice. The next thing I'm going to talk about are watercolor pencils. And I've got a bunch of pencils here. You don't need this many. In fact, I would recommend going with like the set of 12 basics from Prima because they're really nice colors, or the set of 12. Well, the Prima ones are probably the most inexpensive. They retail for $12.99. You can even find them cheaper. Then they're very similar to the Derwent or the Inktense, which are more like $30 for 12. So I just think the Prima is a better deal. Reeves is also a very good deal for watercolor pencils. If you can get a bigger set, go for it. Be careful with the Primas though. If you're going to get a couple sets, as there are duplicates. So if you think you're going to get more than just 12, I would go with like the set of 36 Derwents, which is I think around 20 bucks. It's not crazy expensive. You probably have to find that online. But anyways, you know, a small selection of watercolor pencils are wonderful because then you can stamp with your black ink, you can color with the watercolor pencils, and create so many cards that way. Now, if you are a person that likes the solid stamps, you're probably better off to go with the ink pads. If you're someone that likes the detailed line work stamps, you're better off to go with the watercolor pencils or watercolor markers. Now, if you're not sure what you are, you might want to go with the watercolor markers because you can actually use watercolor markers to ink up your rubber stamp. You can color really detailed. If you had like a leaf print or a flower print or something really colorful, detailed, a lot of image, you could color that up with your markers, breathe on it like this, and stamp. So it's like, so having this is like having 48 ink pads. Okay, you don't need that many markers. These Spectrum Aquas are nice. So are Tombos, and Mementos are really nice too. And you can also scribble these markers off on your stamping block, make a little palette, and you can color that way as well. So the markers probably out of the 3 are the most useful because you can use them as stamp pads, you can use them as coloring mediums. So you get a little more bang for your buck, but I would go with one of these three to begin with if you can't afford all three. You definitely, I don't want anyone to go out and buy a ton of stuff and then discover they don't really care for stamping. These are all materials that you can use for other crafts as well. Now, these are stamp mounts. They have ones that are flat, which most people probably have seen before, and they also have these curved ones, and these are by Crafter's Companion. They are the Rock-A-Blocks, and they're quite affordable. You can get like a set of 4 for, I think they're about $20, and I got mine on sale, so I think I got 4 for like 11. There's also a really big one called the Mega Mount, which you've probably seen in some of my more advanced stamping videos, which is a big acrylic one with a big handle on the back, which is great. The only thing about these blocks, I find them really good for detailed images, but they do have a little learning curve to them. So you are going to have to practice with these curved blocks if you want to get good at them. Your first few images are probably going to be very awkward and not look very good. So you'd want to get out the cheap, you know, newsprint or whatever and practice if you're going to use these. We'll probably be mostly using just flat, clear stamping blocks. Now you can buy these, or you can go to a hardware store and ask for plexiglass scraps, or ask them to cut down a piece of plexiglass for you. This was 1/4-inch plexiglass from the home improvement store that my husband cut into a bunch of different sizes for me, and I really like this. The store-bought ones are thicker. They have a nice grip to hold on to, so you really only need a couple, and I would recommend going with a larger one over a smaller one if you can only get one, because you can put a tiny stamp on this. You know, you can always go smaller on the larger blocks. So just a little tip for you there. If you're looking to just get started and you don't have a lot of money to spend, go with a bigger block. Okay, now let's talk about the types of stamps that you might want to invest in. If you're a beginner, you want to make sure the stamps you get are very versatile. So I would stick to themes that you're going to use over and over again. Stamps that will work with other stamps, stamps that will work with other things you have. One of the things that I recommend is sentiments. I like having like happy birthday, thank you, thinking of you, congratulations, those sort of stamps. You can find them in so many different designs. These are a couple of my favorites. This was a set from Stampin' Up! That had thank you and happy birthday, but I love how it looks kind of like a vintage letterpress block. I use those all the time. It's better to buy a stamp set that you're going to use a lot, even if you have to pay full price for it, than it is to buy a stamp set in the bargain bin that you're maybe never going to use or only use once or twice. You're much better off spending the money on something you're going to use over and over again that's going to be versatile. And I do find that, I think it's because the Stampin' Up! Stamps tend to be a little more expensive. I really think about that purchase. I'm not just grabbing it out of a dollar bin and never using it. Those tend to be my most useful stamps, especially for sentiments. So I prefer to have my sentiments wood mounted and in clear acrylic picture box frames like this, because I could just grab it and stamp it, and it's easy, and these get used a lot. But you can also definitely go with the clear stamps for that. But I do recommend having some, you know, basic words like thank you, happy birthday, congratulations, happy Mother's Day, happy Father's Day. You can even get sets that will say like happy and day and then have different things you can stamp within them. So, you know, be choosy and select a set that will fit most of your needs to begin, because you don't want to have a bunch of stuff you're not going to use. Now for images, I would recommend that you choose images that are going to be reused over and over again. So you may want to make your own Christmas cards. You may choose like a poinsettia. A poinsettia could be used other times of the year too, just changing up the colors, turning it into a different flower. Also swirls can be used on a Christmas card, but could also be used any time of the year and with your scrapbooking and whatnot. It would be all right to invest in a good Christmas stamp, because you probably will use it year after year and get a lot of use out of it. But I want to just make sure that your stuff is very useful. If you have children, you'll probably want to invest in some cute stamps that can be used for their friends' birthday cards and decorations and invitations. If you don't have children and you're mostly stamping for adults, sets of flowers are great. I always go back to flowers that I've had for 8 or 9 years because they're a strong design, and I just love coloring flowers, I guess. House Mouse is one of my favorite. They're kind of specific, but like you could use this for a Christmas card because the mouse is in a wreath, or I could just stamp the flower and the bird, just ink up the bird and the mouse and do like a Valentine's card. You know, so they are kind of cutesy, but I really like them, so I'll use them over and over again. So you definitely want to choose stamps that you're not going to get sick of and that will be versatile. I also like to stamp things that you can stamp other things inside. Like, I want to show you There's one I have here. I use this one quite a bit. It's got a circle, and you could stamp things like candies or jelly beans or hearts or whatever in there, but it's got a handle so you can turn it into a baby rattle. It's got a gumball machine bottom so you can turn it into a gumball. It's got sentiments that, you know, wishing you the sweetest day ever. That could be on a birthday, or that was sweet of you. That could be a thank you. You are my sunshine. That could be a thinking of you. There's like petals so you could turn that into a flower. And there's actually even little treat cups that you could put on there to make like a little a treat card, or you could put like, you could cut that out with a punch or a die cutter or just with an X-Acto knife, and then you could put you know, you could put sprinkles or whatever sequins and stuff and make it in a shaker card. So it's a very versatile set. So that's what I look for when I'm choosing stamps for myself. So think about what type of events you're going to be stamping for, and let that kind of guide you as to what sort of stamps to invest in. If you're a scrapbooker, I would recommend getting some like alphabet stamps. I really like these. You can find them usually kind of in the wood section of the craft store, and they are foam stamps, and they're really good for stamping like large letters on scrapbook pages. You can use them with ink, but you also have the advantage of using these with paint if you want to like stamp on walls or on home decor projects. So also keep your other crafts and hobbies in mind when you're choosing stamps, and see if you can choose ones that will cross over. So if you decide, again, you don't like stamping, you can cross it over and use it in another another area of your craft, so you're not just, you know, giving all your stamps away when you decide you don't like it. You could still use them. And I really think everyone's gonna love the hobby, but you know, I want to be realistic and I want to make sure that your stuff gets used, because if you're gonna go spend big bucks, I want to make sure that you're making a wise investment. So, and foam stamps, that's obviously another type of stamp that you can find. Alright, so other than that, you're going to need cardstock. Now, one of the reasons I'm not recommending you run out and buy Copic markers or other alcohol markers, well, there's a couple reasons. One reason is because you need a lot to do the same amount of coloring that you could do with much fewer watercolor pencils, watercolor inks, and watercolor markers. Like even with the ink pads, you could even squish that down into an acrylic block and use that as paint with a paintbrush. So when you're using water media, you can use this cheap cardstock from Target and Walmart. This is Neenah, but it's not like the kind we use for alcohol markers. You can use the Staples brand, you can use Georgia Pacific, all those really inexpensive cardstocks that you can pick up at any office supply store or, you know, department store. That's, you know, if you don't have to pay, you know, $1 a sheet or 50 cents a sheet, you can get by with like 5 cents a sheet cardstock. You're going to create more because you're not going to feel like you're wasting it. You might also want to invest in some colored cardstocks. You can get multi-packs right at your department store or craft store. I would recommend that to start with. And also maybe some small like 6x6 pads of paper, like or even these little mat stacks. They're 4 1/4 by 5 1/4. You know, just for layering. You can make your card bases out of your white cardstock and cream cardstock from the office supply store, so you don't really need to go out and buy card bases. And envelopes, you can make your own out of magazines or whatever you have on hand, wrapping paper. I wouldn't really worry about that too much either. I want to get you guys started in stamping in an economical way. I hope you found this helpful. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments down below. I'll help you. Your fellow stampers here in the community will help you, and we will inject a little more life into this awesome hobby. I want to thank you so much for watching today. I want to thank ArtNeco.com for being one of our sponsors here of this series. Check them out in the video description. And I want to thank you most of all for watching and for sharing the series with all of your friends via Twitter, there's my main accent, it came out! Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, wherever you share things. I do appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy crafting!